relation based on your conduct and character. In whatever legitimate engagement you find yourself, you must strive to excel and be the best. You must not forget home. You are some of our best and brilliant brains, and your resources, skills, and talents can positively impact Nigeria.
The president used the opportunity to brief his guests on the reforms being implemented in critical sectors of the Nigerian economy to make life better for all.
We focus on key import substitution programs, especially in agriculture and manufacturing, to create jobs for our youth so they can earn a decent and honest living. We also introduce our social investment programs that target some of the most vulnerable citizens and communities. We are already seeing results, and we shall continue to push forward. This is a long journey, and I am confident that in the long run, our efforts will positively impact Nigerians.
President Buhari described as logical Nigeria's renewed partnership with the Russian Federation in view of the many similarities they share. He said Russia, like Nigeria, is pushing an economic diversification agenda that will reduce its reliance on oil and gas by focusing on key job-creating sectors.
The diversification agenda focuses on manufacturing, solid minerals development, and agriculture. Coincidentally, these are also the areas our government has been developing in the past 4 years. We intend to collaborate in areas of oil and gas, agriculture, and solid minerals development. Many of you are aware of the massive Ajaokuta steel plant as the most tangible symbol of this relationship.
The governing APC, he said, is also making steady progress and delivering results in fighting corruption and securing the country for a sustainable future. From Sochi, Russia, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
And more stories coming from Russia now. There is no better time than now for the injection of new energy and pragmatism into the Africa-Russia relations. And that's as the global community is being increasingly driven by trade, technology and innovation.
These were the comments of President Muhammadu Buhari while addressing participants at the first ever Russia-Africa Summit in Sochi. The president, however, said such mutually benefiting relations must go beyond trade and business to addressing contemporary challenges of counter-terrorism, poverty, illicit financial flows and climate change. Here again is State House Adamu Sambu, who reports that the summit focuses on peace, security and development.
Opening a new chapter in the relationship between Africa and Russia, the summit, according to organizers, is the starting point for building fair partnerships as the Russian Federation begins to implement what it described as positive and future-oriented agenda for Africa. As convener of the summit, President Putin said his country, which has a lot to offer the continent of Africa, is ready to engage in competition for cooperation with member countries.
We are all interested in making sure that Russian-African cooperation becomes truly systemic and comprehensive. It is important to support the framework policy of the African Union in restoring economy of countries that suffered from conflicts.
For President Muhammadu Buhari, Africa cannot thank the Russian Federation enough for many significant gestures of solidarity and support that shaped its history as a continent. He hopes to see the revitalization of this time-tested relationship by exploring new opportunities for the collective benefit of all.
Let me clearly state that the time has come with this historic summit today for Africa and the Russian Federation to develop new mutually beneficial relations. On our part, I want to assure Russian friends that Africa is resolute and ready. We look forward to embracing the new dawn of Africa-Russia partnership in general and the revitalized Nigeria-Russia relationship in particular.
He said despite its rich human and natural resources, Africa is lagging behind in capital and technology, hence the increased conflict, migration and instability. This, he said, informed the adoption of regional integration as key development priority towards addressing prevailing challenges as well as promoting robust, equitable and inclusive growth that will minimize conflict and enhance economic development.
I want to emphasize that this mutually beneficial relationship must go beyond trade and business to address our infrastructure deficit, conflicts and terrorism, climate change, and human trafficking.
In respect of Nigeria, President Buhari wants to see the country forge a new cooperation with Russia that seeks to enhance its inclusive economic diversification agenda. Already, he said his administration is investing aggressively in infrastructural development, while policies and programs have been introduced towards enhancing ease of doing business, reducing corruption in the public sector, and enforcing the rule of law.
Today, we live in a world where collective peace and prosperity can only be achieved through collaboration and mutual respect.
A political declaration on the main areas of Russia-Africa cooperation is expected to be adopted by the participating heads of state and government at the end of the summit. From Sochi, Russia, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
In the meantime, Nigeria and Russia have signed an important memorandum of understanding which will enable both countries' oil giants, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation NNPC and Russia's Lukoil, to elevate their commercial relationship to a government-to-government-backed partnership. NNPC and Lukoil will work together in upstream operations and revamp Nigeria's refineries. Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Mile Kyari, and Vagjit Alekperov, president of leading Russian oil company Lukoil, signed the MOU, which entails cooperation in deep offshore exploration of oil in Nigeria, production, trading and refining. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, the signing ceremony, which took place on the sidelines of the Russia-Africa Summit, was witnessed by the Minister of State for Petroleum, Timipri Silva. In his remarks, the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, said Nigeria was prepared and willing to work with Russian businesses to improve the efficiency of the oil and gas sector, which provides the much-needed capital to invest in security, infrastructure and economic diversification programs. While taking note of the agreements between NNPC and Lukoil, President Buhari gave an assurance that his administration will ensure that the initiative is implemented within the shortest possible time.
And meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed delight with the World Bank's 2020 Doing Business Index, DBI, which ranked Nigeria 131 out of 190 countries. That's up 15 places from 146th position last year. Now, in a statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, says the report, which was released Thursday, also named Nigeria one of the top 10 most improved economies in the world for the second time in 3 years. Nigeria is one of the only two African countries to make this highly prestigious list. With this year's leap, Nigeria has improved an aggregate of 39 places in the World Bank Doing Business Index since 2016. This is in line with the reform agenda being implemented at the national and subnational levels across the country since the establishment of the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council by President Muhammadu Buhari in July 2016.
And the All Progressives Congress commends the President Muhammadu Buhari administration on the latest World Bank ranking, which sees Nigeria jump 15 places in the institution's Ease of Doing Business global ratings. The party also welcomes bilateral agreements between President Buhari and the Russian President Vladimir Putin at the ongoing Russia-Africa Summit to strengthen Nigeria-Russia multifaceted relations, particularly in completing abandoned projects initiated by both countries, starting new infrastructure projects and expanding trade and investment, security and military cooperation. National Publicity Secretary of the APC, Lanre Issa Onilu, in a statement, says with Nigeria's latest ranking and in line with the campaign promises, it is evident that the President Buhari administration is building a globally competitive economy and consolidating on the nation's status as Africa's biggest economy.
And let's get some more finance stories from the National Assembly now. And the Ministry of Finance is to spend 361 million naira for the project Lighthouse in the 2020 fiscal year. Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed, while defending the ministry's 2020 budget before the Senate Committee on Works, explained that the project will be a source of revenue and tax-related intelligence for government. Here is National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Unko with the rest of the story.
Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed arriving the National Assembly for a budget defense session with the Senate Committee on Finance. At the committee room, she presented the performance of 2019 budget of the ministry and then defended that of 2020. The project Lighthouse is one of the new projects penciled down for implementation by the ministry, as it will also carry out digitization of the functions of the core ministry at the cost of 190.5 million naira.
This year we launched Project Lighthouse, which is a digital portal that is warehousing data from several agencies that is enabling us to support the FIRS, the states, and any agency of government that wants information on taxpayers.
We are looking at the opportunity of even auditing the states and all the local government to look at the amount deducted as VAT and other relevant items of tax if they are eventually regulated.
Works and Housing Minister Babatunde Fashola defended the ministry's 2020 budget of 287.1 billion naira before the National Assembly Joint Committees on Works. He explained that the ministry will focus on completion of roads and bridges, especially those on routes A1 and A9 that lead to ports and major agricultural hubs across the 6 geopolitical zones.
We thought that it was necessary to intervene in the education sector of the country. And to date, we have 48 road projects at various stages of completion inside universities. Perhaps our country today is the only country where roads are being built by government, maintained by government, without any tolls being collected.
Minister of Communications and Digital Economy Ali Issa Pantami defended the ministry's budget of 6.1 billion naira before the National Assembly Joint Committees on Communications, Information Communication Technology and Cyber Crimes. The committee felt that the 2 billion naira proposed as the ministry's revenue is below expectation, but he gave explanations.
The revenue generation and the levy will automatically go to the parastatals under the ministry, not the supervising ministry.
Budget scrutiny continued with the Senate Committee on Public Procurement, where the management of Bureau of Public Procurement, led by its Director General, Maman Amadu, explained that the agency plans to carry out a procurement audit of ministries, departments and agencies in 2020 with the sum of 100 million naira. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Unko, NTA News.
And you're watching the news at 10 on the network service. More budget scrutiny when we come back.
This is NTA News 24 broadcasting from Abuja. You can watch us anywhere, anytime on the following platforms.
Start Times, Channel 101, Freak TV, Channel 703, GSTV, Channel 419, and Go TV, Channel 46.
For more information, log on to our website www.nta.ng or join us on our social media handles, Twitter at NTA News 24, Facebook at NTA News 24.
For comments, suggestions and inquiries, send an email to news24@nta.gov.ng or call us on the following numbers.
NTA News 24.
News and more news.
Thanks for remaining with us. Now, the renewed partnership between the Parliament and security agencies is energizing their shared objective of bringing to an end security challenges in some parts of the country.
And that much was confirmed during the annual budget defense as both sides affirmed commitment to facilitating provision and deployment of needed logistics for security operations. For that story, we join our correspondent Lami Ali.
The budget defense was used to hold open secret consultations on security issues, which the Speaker, House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila says is of priority to the federal government.
that it is in the front burner. It is priority for us. For the first time in the history of, I think, the House of Representatives, we have the issue of the armed forces and on the legislative agenda.
The Chief of the Defense Staff, General Gabriel Olonishakin, Chief of the Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, and Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, while defending their 2020 estimates before the House of Representatives Committee on Defense, Army and Air Force respectively, were appreciative of appropriations by the National Assembly for security, which have enabled the execution of operations aimed at curbing security breaches and acquisition of state-of-the-art military hardware.
The area of cyber, that is also something that we are hopeful that with the support of the House, that agency, that administration, Defense Space Administration, will be given the necessary boost.
I'm very grateful to the President and of course you members of the National Assembly and this committee in particular for your understanding that the welfare and remuneration of armed forces of Nigeria needs improvement so as to enhance our capacity to create the much needed environment for peace and security.
Very soon our officers and men will move into Pakistan for training while the production of the aircraft is ongoing.
Chairmen of the various committees restated renewed vigor to give necessary support for success.
We want to ensure that you get the fleet and inventory that you are entitled to.
You have repaired a lot of insurgents and what have you. Nigerians still expect more from you, and that is why whatever we do, they will work together to ensure that this thing is contained. We will give you our best.
I wish to seize this opportunity to commend Chief of Air Staff and indeed all the officers of Nigerian Air Force for the good work they have done and are still doing to curtail the nagging security challenges in this country.
In another development, the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, briefed the House Committee on Finance on the ministry's performance in 2019 and projections for 2020 during the ministry's budget defense. Similarly, Minister of Health, Osage Haniri, had an engagement with the House of Representatives Committee on Diaspora, during which he informed members of plans to tackle medical tourism and brain drain.
Collaboration is a connection of our Nigerians in diaspora, professionals in diaspora, with our own service departments here, the federal medical centers and the teaching hospitals, so that there is not only an exchange of technical ideas, but also administrative service delivery experience.
From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
And selected projects that would impact the country's socio-economy are specifically congested in the more than 87 billion naira 2020 budget estimate for the Federal Ministry of Water Resources.
And the Minister of Water Resources, Suleiman Adamu, made that clarification while defending the 2020 budget before the House Committee on Water Resources. The National Assembly correspondent Abdullahi Adamu has that story.
Rolling over the Federal Ministry of Water Resources 2020 budget proposal has a capital expenditure of 78 billion naira, about 8 billion naira personnel, and 1.66 billion naira overhead.
Clear perspective what we are asking, so don't be shy of asking what do we mean by that.
Minister Suleiman Adamu requested the committee to revisit the country's water revenue processes through the Integrated Water Resources Commission.
The ministry still believes that with adequate and timely releases of budgetary allocations to the sector, we'll be able to achieve our set targets and contribute immensely towards the realization of the policy thrusts of the Buhari administration.
River Basin Operations and Inspectorate Division of the Ministry of Water Resources, Anambra Imo River Basin Development Authority, and Cross River Basin Development Authority also defended their 2020 budget estimates before the committee, seeking for additional funds in their proposals. From the National Assembly, Abdullahi Aminu, NTA News.
And the National Assembly and Executive are working together to avert any impediment to presidential assent to bills passed by the 9th National Assembly. Now, the presiding officers of the two chambers of the National Assembly, President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, and Speaker, House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, granted audience to the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, during which both arms of government resolved to collaborate to ensure smooth bill process, especially on the issue of presidential assent.
Is to look at the possibility of working together between the executive and the legislature, and where the need arises, the judiciary, in working on the bills even before they proceed to the stage of public hearing, before they proceed to the stages of being read at the floor of the National Assembly, so that we can harmoniously understand each other, harmoniously work on a beneficial approach that will see them sailing through both at the point of passage and the point of assent.
And therefore, to ensure speedy passage and, of course, good implementation for good governance. When we process a bill, so much resources are put into it, so much efforts, so much commitment, and sometimes even emotional.
Mine is just to thank the Attorney General and by extension Mr. President for this continuous show of the kind of relationship that many of us believe should exist in any democracy between different arms of government. And that is a relationship of harmony, a relationship of symbiosis where we feed off of each other, and for the benefit of the Nigerian people.
In the meantime, out of 192 ecological projects embarked upon by the federal government from 2015 to date, 143 have been completed, while 49 are ongoing across the 6 geopolitical zones. Permanent Secretary, Ecological Fund Office, in the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Habiba Lawal made this known at an interactive session with the Senate Committee on Ecology and Climate Change at the National Assembly. Mitaire Ikpen reports.
2.32% of funds accruable to the Federation account make up the ecological funds, which are shared monthly among the 3 tiers of government by the Federation Account Allocation Committee. It is obligatory for states and local governments to utilize their share of the funds to address ecological challenges within their domains, while the federal government plays a coordinating role. With dwindling resources, expectations are high on the subnational governments to augment the efforts of the federal government in tackling mounting ecological challenges.
In 2017, we were able to document over 2,800 ecological sites. We were able to do almost 40 to 44 projects in 2018, and by the reduction in funding, the office may not be in a position to do more than 18 to 20 projects in 2019.
The Senate Committee requested the Ecological Funds Office to furnish it with state-by-state details of its activities since 2015 for appropriate interventions.
How often do you give such intervention, and to whom and why? We may need to know.
Community leaders were also advised to desist from demanding gratification from contractors before ecological projects are executed in their vicinities. From the National Assembly, Mitaire Ikben, NTA News.
This is the news at 10 on NTA News 24. We'll take another break now. The news continues shortly.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online. Or visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, You can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.
This is the network service of the NTA.
One of the major concerns of Nigeria in her foreign policy is to become a role model on peaceful coexistence and economic development in the Africa continent. I am Usman Aliu for the Diaspora This Week. Nigeria and South Africa have been friends for quite a long time. How this relationship started, let's hear from Nigeria's mission in South Africa.
Well, our relationship with the Republic of South Africa dates back to even the days of apartheid, when our country took a stand towards decolonization of Africa, the whole of Africa. And in the 70s, or even early in the 60s, colonization, especially in South Africa, was very rampant, and the government decided to support all the liberation movement in the sub-region. Now, after the liberation of most of those countries, and then, of course, South Africa, we established diplomatic relations. So there is a bilateral relationship between Nigeria and South Africa. Now, from 1994 to date, we've been able to move the relationship from just being a bilateral relationship. As the relationship grew rapidly in so many areas, we felt that this relationship should be moved from a joint commission to a binational commission at the level of deputy and vice president. And in 2016, our two presidents, the then president of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma, and President Muhammadu Buhari, decided to upgrade the relationship at the binational commission from being chaired by the two vice presidents of the two countries to a relationship or a commission that is chaired by the two heads of state. And that was just to signify and to highlight the fact that the relationship between the two countries is such a special relationship, a strategic one, because the two countries are the major pillars in Africa as far as the economy is concerned. When you look at the GDP of the two countries, and in fact, if you add Egypt, you will have 50% of the total GDP of Africa. So if these two countries are able to relate with one another on a very economic footing, then we could say economic growth and survival of the country, the continent, is anchored on these two countries. So indeed, this year we should be celebrating the 20th anniversary of the establishment of the Joint Commission and then the Binational Commission. And now we have succeeded in doing it at the level of heads of state.
But then what happened along the line? Because at the level of the government, all is well. But looking at the current situation on the ground, it seems that there are some problems, especially within the citizens. Where is the problem?
Well, for me, I would say that if you look at this relationship that has graduated from a bilateral relation to a joint commission to a binational commission, this binational commission is meant to meet annually. And unfortunately for the relationship, we have not been able to meet in the last 6 years. The last time we had this meeting was in 2013. There has been various attempts to bring about the convening of the commission, but for various reasons, the two sides could simply not meet. And if you look at all the agreements that we have signed, 32 of them, 32 agreements and memoranda of understanding have been signed between the two countries. Some of them have fortunately been implemented, and some are yet to even be ratified. And if you look at all those agreements, they cut across all aspects of relationship that countries can relate on. Unfortunately and sadly, some of the agreements that affect peoples-to-people relationship have not been ratified or have not been implemented. And if you have an agreement between two countries that are supposed to meet on an annual basis, and for 6 years you've not been able to meet, then naturally there will be problems. And I think it became very clear to all of us who participated in the senior officials meeting and the ministerial meeting that we had before the binational commission, or before the two presidents met. It became very, very clear to us that if we had been successful in getting the two countries to meet over the last 6 years at the platform of the binational commission, some of these challenges wouldn't have really happened, because there are issues to do with immigration, there are issues to do with visas, with passport, migration, illegal and regular one. And for our leaders who have had the wisdom to see in the future, they have envisaged perhaps a situation like this, and they crafted all those agreements in order to checkmate this possibility that in this country, I mean the Republic of South Africa, there are economic challenges, no doubt. If you recall, in the last 2 years, the economy has been in recession. And the growth of the economy is simply less than the optimal. And there are people who feel that, yes, foreigners are coming to the country to take away what they call as their jobs. Some of them just menial jobs, actually. And from the statistics that we have, we say there is 29% unemployment in the country. Now, where you have 29% unemployment, naturally you will expect maybe difficulties, because you have young, active people who are unemployed, sitting down just looking for ways and means to survive. And when they see others who are not South Africans, naturally they will feel that maybe these people are taking advantage of their country. And then again, you have some national leaders in the country who take advantage of this situation to incite their people, and the point that perhaps these foreign nationals are the ones behind some of their difficulties. But that is not and may not simply be the truth. It's just that they try to put blame on some other people who to cover some of their incapacity or inability to address some of the challenges they have. These, I think, are some of the issues that I think are the causes of this problem.
With the majority rule in South Africa in 1994, Nigeria immediately established a diplomatic mission in Pretoria. And a few months later, they also established a consulate general of Nigeria in Johannesburg. And since then, the relationship has moved on steadily well until 2001, when the two countries established a binational commission to be able to carry on with the relationship in the various areas of cooperation. And that has been going on well until 2013, when, after the last binational commission that was held in Cape Town here in South Africa, there was none again held until the one of last week, 2019. Situation on ground, one could also say that one, you have a society where unemployment is high, as it is in many countries today. And with this high rate of unemployment, of course, people become idle. They are not doing much. So it is very easy to mobilize for any form of conflict. That is part of what we experience here in South Africa. And then you also find a situation whereby the crime rate in South Africa is very high. It's one of the highest rate in the world. I was looking at it from internet, and you could find that about 50 people are murdered in South Africa every day. That's about 20,335 people in a year from murder, crime-related murders. And with a society like that, there is bound to be conflicts. And that is part of the reasons where you have some of the conflicts. And then, thirdly, you have the issue of perception. One of the issues of perception, before I can continue further, is that any African who is not from the southern region, that is in SADC region of South Africa, that is Southern African Development Community, is taken to be a Nigerian. It could be a Tanzanian, it could be a Cameroonian, it could be a Zambian, but what the average person, South African, will look at, as long as it is not from one of the neighboring countries, is Nigeria. And of course, we have said that crime rate is very high. So with this kind of situation, there is a perception. Of course, a few Nigerians get involved in crime, particularly drug trafficking and human trafficking. Now, when any other person is involved in crime, as long as it's not a South African or a Zimbabwean or coming out of it, it becomes a Nigerian. So there is this problem of perception. So when issues happen, for instance, the issue that generated these current xenophobic attacks in South Africa was first in Pretoria on 28th on 28 September, August, thereabout. And it was alleged that a Nigerian killed a South African taxi driver. Of course, we got to know later that he was not a Nigerian. But already the information had gone out, even to some media houses. And with this kind of information, the perception created a kind of effect that when the looting and destruction of properties started, of course, Nigerian businesses were targeted immediately. So they suffered so much losses in this based on such perceptions. And these perceptions sometimes create opportunities for people to hold on to certain narratives, which of course could be negative. But my advice to the government of South Africa is that there is a need to carry the information that we are having at the level of government to government relations, that is the bilateral relations, down to the grassroots, and creating some kind of social cohesion programs, things that will bring the two sides together. And I'm happy that all that came up during the discussions at the Binational Commission. And with that kind of system, people will begin to see other Africans, including Nigerians, as brothers, not those who are against them in any way. The high points of the bilateral meetings that took place in the past few days and the conclusion of the state visit of Mr. President to the country here, you could see that a lot has improved since this visit. Because people are now getting other information more than what they used to have. They are seeing at the level of government relations and bilateral relations that the two countries are united together, that things have seriously improved. To the extent that at this moment, nobody is attacking anybody. People are beginning to understand that the foreigners are not necessarily their problems. And I believe the government is also determined now to see how they can be able to take any further conflicts based on the assurances that we received even from the President of South Africa.
Nigeria and South Africa Binational Commission has been elevated to a position of heads of government. What are the gains of this improvement in the relationship with South Africa?
At the end of the day, we've been able to understand ourselves in a very much better diplomatic position. And we have been able to show the world that as two big brothers in Africa, we are in a position to resolve our own issues without getting to get anybody to do that for us. In spite of what happened recently to Nigerians and other nationals in this country, we have been able to come and talk to one another and find solutions to future occurrence of this unfortunate development. There are other issues that a lot of them we have discussed. We have about 32 bilateral agreements between Nigeria and South Africa, and we have discovered that about 20 of them are in operation. The few that are yet to take off, we have agreed to go ahead and ensure that they are fully implemented. Like, say, the one affecting my ministry, that the Ministry of Police Affairs, we have realized that these agreements have been signed since 2001. And because of one problem or the other, particularly the fact that Ministry of Police Affairs has been off and on, these agreements have not been made operational. We have now settled the agreement and we have introduced new issues that are of common interest to the two countries, and we intend to sit down again between now to March 2020 to ensure that these things are being made operational.
We've looked at critical areas of doing business in Nigeria. You know, trying to see how can we improve on our trade relations, how can we improve or learn from each other in terms of the agro-allied, the automotive sector, the medium, small and micro, medium, sorry, the MSMEs, you know. So how do we bring about greater business collaboration and the kind of trying to balance the trade? Because as you are very much aware, there are a lot of South African companies in Nigeria, and but on the other side, not many Nigerian companies are established here. We may have them at the smaller level of, smaller businesses, but we want the larger companies to come in.
These meetings afforded us to talk on cooperation on different sectors, particularly my own sector, which is minerals and steel development. Strangely, in South Africa, the Minister of Mines also controls petrol, while the Minister of Trade controls steel. So I had to deal with two of them. We acknowledge that we both need each other. They've just discovered crude oil recently, and they need our experience in terms of petroleum exploration, especially offshore, while they have very advanced in mining, which we are just going into. And of course, we are learning from them there as well. So it's really a symbiotic relationship. We've come out with a 9-point agenda for the ministry with them. And of course, we intend to pursue this, which will be mutually beneficial to everybody.
This is the century for Africa. This is the era where Africa needs to understand how to move its people forward. And key to that is excellent relations between the countries. And the premier countries at the forefront in Africa are Nigeria and South Africa. So it's very important that these two countries go even further in advanced relations in diplomacy, industry, trade, science and technology. So this meeting here today has addressed that. Strategies have been looked at on how these two countries can further come together with those objectives, not just for the two countries, but for the betterment and development of Africa and its people in general.
As Achebe will say, the story of the hunt will always favor the hunter until lions themselves start to tell the story. What I mean by that is that Nigerians need to start telling their stories in South Africa. I am the president of Nigerian Doctors Forum in South Africa, and I can tell you that there's no medical facility in South Africa that doesn't have the presence of a Nigerian doctor. You know, we've got our professors here, we've got our consultants here who are teaching undergraduates from South African extract and other nationals here, and even at the postgraduate levels. We've got one of our members who is a vice chancellor in one of the topmost universities here, medical universities here in South Africa. But
a very important development was the agreement immediately to set up an early warning system, which will mean the regular meeting of Nigerian embassy, high commission here, consulate with the South African side. So regularly and sharing information, and also with the Nigerian Union of South Africa. So that way, if there any sort of looming crisis, the highest level of the government of South Africa will be able to get that information, share it with Nigerians, and you can take preventive measures early. So that's a very important agreement. And then also in other areas, immigration, visas for officials, defense cooperation, agreements that have been put in place. So it's been very, very good.
And that's it all on the diaspora for this edition. Thank you for joining us. Let's meet again for another edition.
we have literally banned the importation of rice to Nigeria, because for the past 3 years, no Form M has been given for importation of rice. And that Form M is the license, is the only credible document for formal importation of rice. The idea is to enhance our own food security, to build our own food security, encourage our farmers so that they can go and sell. And they have been doing that. But certainly this has become a problem. The poultry product, let Nigerians know, the same chemical that is used to embalm dead bodies is the same chemical that is injected into those chickens and turkeys to preserve it for our consumption. So this is how bad it is. The rice that we eat, 95% of it is expired. It's expired rice. Those that goes to buy it bag these things and send it to us. If you want to test this, cook the two rice, our own Abakaliki rice, and cook the foreign rice. Cover it for 48 hours, tight, and open the two. After 48 hours, you hear the smell that will come from the foreign rice. It's terrible. It's terrible. That means it's chemicalized and the chemicals have expired, and therefore it becomes poison. The drugs that are coming into Nigeria today, 95% of it come through our borders. Porous borders, these guys can take it through any route, which affects the health and well-being of our people, has also been reduced drastically. I make bold to say today, since we closed the border, the act of banditry has reduced drastically. Two things. Either those who create this havoc cross our borders, create this havoc and run back, or the ammunitions and arms that they use, which come at will, is no longer coming. So this act is reducing. This is what we are trying to protect Nigerians from. And we have to do it. Our job is not only collecting revenue, it's security and the well-being of Nigerians. And therefore closing the border has become necessary so that we can get our neighbors to come to a table so that we can sit down and agree on imposing the protocol agreed by ECOWAS.
Are you an entrepreneur? Do you have an existing business or great business idea? Then Africa's Young Entrepreneurs Empowerment Nigeria, ION, is a program for you, where thousands of business owners and entrepreneurs will be empowered with business funding, mentorship, specialized skills training, and equipment. To register for the ION 2019 program, visit www.ion.ng. Fill in your personal and business details, check your email frequently, and follow us on all our social media platforms for regular updates. For more information, visit www.ayen.ng or call 070-0044-4444. ION 2019, showcasing and empowering Nigerian entrepreneurs. Nigeria.
NTAE brings you the best of entertainment.
I thought I was being sarcastic.
I went on to do other productions.
everything music.
To hear what Richmond is saying.
If you look at the platforms of Facebook
for a particular product.
They call a new school playing.
That's in the hot, we go carry
the hair go come and
got the smell.
Somebody's sad, you feel it.
I love you, I love you.
Memory just a little. I know this. Chop, they are already washed.
To a president.
They depended on Jesus. What else can I do? Get a shower for and dancers.
Watch these programs and more.
Hello again, this is the news update at 11. I am Dennis at Digunloye. Nigerians both at home and in the diaspora have been reassured of the unshakable resolve by the federal government to do everything within the limits of the law to support, protect and encourage them to prosper in the pursuit of their legitimate means of livelihood. President Muhammadu Buhari stated this at a meeting with leaders of the Nigerian community in the Russian Federation on the sidelines of the Russia-Africa Summit in Sochi.
You, as the face of our country and the world, would judge our nation based on your conduct and character. In whatever legitimate engagement you find yourself, you must strive to excel and be the best. You must not forget home. You are some of our best and brilliant brains, and your resources, skills, and talents can positively impact Nigeria.
And Nigeria and Russia have signed an important memorandum of understanding which will enable both countries' oil giants, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) and Russia's Lukoil, to elevate their commercial relationship to a government-to-government backed partnership. NNPC and Lukoil will work together in upstream operations and revamp Nigeria's refineries. Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Milik Kyari, and Vagit Alekperov, president of leading Russian oil company Lukoil, signed the MOU, which entails cooperation in deep offshore exploration of oil in Nigeria, production, trade and refining. In a statement by the senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Garba Shehu, the signing ceremony, which took place on the sidelines of the Russia-Africa Summit, was witnessed by the Minister of State for Petroleum, Timipri Silva. In his remarks, the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, said Nigeria is prepared and willing to work with Russian businesses to improve the efficiency of the oil and gas sector, which provides the much-needed capital to invest in security, infrastructure and economic diversification programs. While taking note of the agreements between NNPC and Lukoil, President Buhari gave an assurance that his administration will ensure that the initiative is implemented within the shortest possible time. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has urged people in the media and opinion holders to inspire others to think deeply about the complexities of the Nigerian society towards promoting peace and unity. The Vice President said this at an interfaith dialogue in Abuja organized by the Embassy of the United Arab Emirates to commemorate that country's month of peace.
And I really want to urge the media and the social media, which involves now every one of us, as gatekeepers of the public mind, to lend their platforms to advocates of peace and mutual understanding, and therefore amplify our potential for harmonious coexistence. You need great leadership to tell people to love those who hate them, to tell people to pray for those who curse them, to respond to hate with love, and to show compassion and understanding to people of other faiths. That's what we need great leadership for.